Hello everyone, and welcome back to the beauty of combat. If you love combat sports and want to look at the fights on a deeper level, then please share and like the video and subscribe to the channel to help these breakdowns go to the next level. Wow, what a fight. It only went to the second round, but there were so many juicy exchanges, so much martial skill on display. I think we can all agree that the fight and the occasion lived up to expectations. Let's get into breaking down how, but more importantly why, Poirier was able to get his revenge. A dish best served cold. So we're going to start with a couple of things McGregor did well. Even though he lost, McGregor gave us a lot to enjoy in this fight. And we'll start off with his jab. One of the things that stood out to me with McGregor's performance was the jab that he was throwing. I've touched on it in other videos, but McGregor's lead hand has typically been used to gauge range, almost like an antenna, measuring his opponent's distance. This works especially well in the open stance matchup, orthodox versus southpaw. Poirier being a southpaw, it was lovely to see McGregor throwing a solid, full-blooded jab. He's often been mocked for his jab in the past, with people saying it's like a pitter-patter shot. They misunderstand how it was being used in this instance to measure range and set up his left hand, but in this fight the jab was much improved. The work with Phil Sutcliffe at Crumlin ABC has clearly been paying off. Also, what McGregor was doing well was his shot selection off the back of his powerful left hand. McGregor used the fact that Poirier was ultra reactive to his left hand to set up other strikes. Psychologically, the left hand, the shot that KO'd Poirier in their first fight, could potentially have been overcompensated for in the mind and training of Poirier. And this makes sense. A fight-ending mistake needs to be addressed and answers for provided. Something we will touch on later, but one way Poirier was looking to deal with the left hand was by leaning out of range and countering with his right hook. After getting clipped with the counter a few times, McGregor looked to add another phase to the attack. After the left hand would be thrown and fall short, McGregor then used this shot to load his right hand and put it on the end of a combination as a corkscrew style uppercut. Another method of defense Poirier was using was shelling up behind his earmuff guard. Shelling up nice and tight. Doing this in MMA is different to doing it with boxing gloves on, and to properly protect the head, a fighter must often trade this off with a lack of coverage of the body. This is because the gloves are so small, making it very hard to protect your whole upper body and head with just the limbs. McGregor capitalised on this by taking the left hand downstairs when Poirier thought it was coming up top. Very precise and very clever from McGregor. All made possible by the psychology of the knockout from the first fight between these two men. And now we will look at what Poirier did well. What a performance from Dustin the Diamond Poirier. This guy is the epitome of self-belief, hard work, growth, perseverance, and overcoming setbacks. We've seen him grow as a person and grow as a fighter over the years. His approach to this fight was completely different. Whereas before we saw him emotionally invested, with a chip on his shoulder, and doing everything to gain the approval of the people that doubted him, this time we saw him coming in cold, calm, and calculated. He even said pre-fight that he just, cares less about what people think, and how it has become a superpower for him to adopt this attitude. I guess it is true that pressure creates diamonds, and the pressure that this man has had exerted on him in his career and life has made one in this case. So one of the things that Poirier did fantastically well was countering with his right hook. He was always looking to catch McGregor with the right hook after the left hand was thrown. McGregor has a tendency to fall in with his left hand, and a few times his momentum carried him right onto the counter right hook Poirier. Poirier made McGregor pay for the lack of defensive responsibility after the left hand. We even saw John Kavanagh, McGregor's long-term coach, ask McGregor to keep the backhand up on the way out, in between the first and second round. But you can't just change these habits mid-fight. These movements are governed by muscle memory, and McGregor is used to seeing people hurt or finish by his left hand. So maybe this has made him subconsciously lazy over the years. An important point to make here is that 1 in 10 people are left-handed. This means that if a left-handed person follows conventional wisdom and adopts a southpaw stance, a southpaw versus southpaw matchup is a statistical rarity. In the same stance matchup, the lead hook to counter the backhand is a poignant weapon because the lead hand is what is closest to the opponent. McGregor and Poirier are both southpaws, and I think this rarity in the matchup style could factor into McGregor's backhand laziness. We very rarely see him being countered with the right hand by orthodox fighters because the right hand's so far away. Whereas against Poirier and Diaz, who are both southpaws, it happens repeatedly. Following on from this point, the rarity of the southpaw versus southpaw matchup means that someone in McGregor's position would have less experience checking the outside leg kicks with the knee. Poirier brutally targeted the lead leg of McGregor, which is a fantastic strategy against a heavy puncher. The reason for this is to get power into punches, you have to sit down with your weight. Sitting this weight down makes the legs a lucrative target for Poirier, and Poirier used this strategy to maximum effect. Typically, McGregor has a bladed stance that he uses to help him shift in and out of range. Being light on the toes and fluid with his movements allows him to slide and transition between fast kicks on the outside and heavy punches on the inside. But the trade-off to this type of movement is that it becomes very difficult to turn the knee and check the kick with the shin bone. What exasperated this problem for McGregor was the fact that Poirier was taking the kick to the calf area below the knee on the outside of the leg. Even when he did start to square his stance and brace for the kick, it still hit the upper outside section just below the knee. There are some nerves in this area called the deep fibula and the superficial fibula that are paramount for lower leg function, and to be hit there can be completely debilitating for the person on the receiving end. When you start to see someone reaching for the leg kick, you know they are hurting. To take your hand away from your head when there are kicks coming at you can be extremely risky, but it is a decision made out of desperation by somebody really feeling the effects of the kicks. It is not enough to brace and slightly turn the leg out to check the calf kick, as McGregor was trying to do. The knee must be completely rotated, and the impact needs to be taken on the shin bone. Fighters that disregard the Muay Thai stance, which is more squared with most of the weight on the back leg, in favour of in and out movement, are particularly susceptible to this kick. The beginning of the end started when Poirier touched McGregor on the calf again. McGregor doesn't show it in his face, but he's clearly hurt. How do we know this? Well, we know this because he starts to throw more hands at Poirier and try and turn up the heat on him, searching for a finish. He catches Poirier a few times before getting caught on the nerve again while headhunting. We can visibly see the leg buckle in this exchange. Poirier then moves into attack with punches. McGregor can't move his feet due to the nerve damage, so ends up trying to slip and roll and block the punches. As Poirier pursues him, instead of switching back into southpaw to pursue, he shifts his stance into orthodox and drops McGregor with an orthodox right hook as McGregor goes to lean under a shot. The stance shift means he covers the ground to McGregor slightly quicker than expected, and he therefore arrives at McGregor a moment before was expected, meaning the momentum of McGregor's lean meets with Poirier's fist, creating a devastating collision. Absolutely amazing work from Poirier to switch his stance in the moment and while he's attacking. Fantastic poise. The game is changing right in front of our eyes. Fighters have prioritised fluidity of movement to help with the navigation of ranges that MMA requires. but the calf kick to the nerve seems to be throwing a spanner in the works for this sort of ideology. Do we need to see a return of the out-of-fashion Muay Thai stance? Let me know your thoughts, and how will this factor in with takedowns? Which is more important, fluidity of movement or leg safety? And on the topic of McGregor, he's earned money and has access to luxury beyond what many can conceive. The great marvellous Marvin Hagler famously stated, "It's tough to get out of bed and do road work at 5 AM when you've been sleeping in silk pyjamas." This has to have had an effect on McGregor's durability and desire to go into the trenches. Has Conor McGregor become a victim of his own success, one might ask? McGregor has a diverse skill set and still shows flashes of brilliance, clearly showing the ability to dish it out to anyone in the world. But the other side of the coin in combat sports is being able to take what is dished out, and this always seems to be where he unravels. Will we ever see the young and hungry up-and-comer again? Leave your thoughts below for me, as we love to engage with the community on this channel. I would also ask that you suggest any other fights that you would like to put under the microscope.